This computer. Okay, wonderful. All right, Ralph. So who do we have today?
Good morning, everybody. We have a very good, I guess, colleague and friend of Dinesh and I, Nicole Pendergrass. I'm going to read a short bio, and she has a ton of stuff that I know she's going to share for us, and we're going to get a ton of value today. So Nicole Pendergrass started her real estate journey with no money, no credit, and no connections. Through taking action and learning from some tough challenges, this ambitious mother of two has been able to successfully grow and diversify her capital into several wealth building buckets. She currently is founder and CEO of Noir Vest Holdings, a real estate investment firm with the mission to close the gap by bringing privileged investment opportunities to everyday overlooked investors and helping minorities build generational wealth. She is passionate about others having equal opportunities to live financially free. So, everybody, help me welcome Nicole Pendergrass. Morning, Nicole. How's it going?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Ralph and Dinesh, for having me here and letting me talk to people and share my journey, and hopefully can inspire people to get started or to keep going.
For sure. It's an honor to have you here. So I guess first start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into multifamily investing with no money, no credit, no connections.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the long way. So I am Nicole. I actually am a full-time W-2 employee. I work in healthcare. I have two toddlers, which you will hear in the background because one is playing video games. Who is this? The Incredibles right now. So yeah, I've just been working, trying to not get started, but working on this journey in real estate for a long time now. I got introduced to it through a 3-day real estate conference that I went to. My husband, now then boyfriend, took me to the conference. I was blown away with the possibilities that you could create wealth and really just change the trajectory of your life through real estate. And that I didn't know real estate investing like normal, regular people did it. And that it wasn't just like big corporations or people who, had trust funds or millions of dollars. Like everyday normal people could invest in real estate. And so that's where my mindset got changed, and everything just, whoa, it blew up. And so from then I jumped in, I joined whatever that coaching program was back then. And then I got exposed to all these different strategies. So I started with the strategy that they tell most people to start with, which is wholesaling, especially when you have no money and bad credit, because you don't need any of that. So I started with that strategy. For 2 years, I actually was working on that, probably 2 or 3, and we never did a wholesale deal in New York City. And it's just like a tough market. I think there are things that they oversimplify that process, but to be successful, there's just a lot more involved in it than I knew or realized at the time and at that moment. And so from then, like, I was a member of the New York City RIA, which is something else they tell newbies to do, is join your local RIA. I did that. We went on property tours and different tours in different cities there. And then a bunch of us got together, pooled our money, which was probably like $5,000 each. We weren't starting with a lot. And we bought a few properties in Detroit, Michigan, single families to rehab and rent out. That was a complete disaster. And from then, we basically walked away with that with nothing. I think because I was on the day-to-day management team of that, with operations, we got a percentage of pay. So I think at the end of it, I walked away with like maybe $800. But because I had done it through my self-directed, like I transferred money from my retirement account into a self-directed IRA. And because I did that, I couldn't take the check to myself. I had to put it back into the IRA, which at first I was like, forget this, I'm going to keep this check, because now for the IRA to distribute it to me, it costs money. And for me to close the account, it costs money. And I'm like, I only got $800. Like, why do I want to do that? So I was just about to say, I don't care what the tax consequences are, I'm just going to keep this. But I went ahead and I sent it back to the IRA so that they could put it in their account and they could redistribute it to me and they could think. So I don't even know how much I netted with that after probably less than $500. So I was like, it just wasn't worth it. So I did that because that's just something you hear. You can invest in real estate with your self-directed IRA, but you need to know, your goals and what you want to do long term, and if that even makes sense for you to do in that moment. And so it definitely didn't make sense for me to do that. So there's just like all these strategies and things that are out there and sound great, and I'm quick to implement. Some things I like to be quick to implement, but at the same time, you got to know your goals and your trajectory and what you're trying to accomplish, and if that even makes sense for your situation, because it may not. And then from there is when I ended up buying my 3-family that I house hacked in the Bronx, and that is when true momentum and the trajectory of my financial situation and my life kind of changed. I had to stumble through some hard times with that. I had non-paying tenants for, a year that I had to evict. I lost thousands and thousands of dollars from them not paying rent and me having to come find money from other places so that I could pay my mortgage, because I said, I refuse. I worked too hard to get this property to let you bum tenants steal it away from me, because now I can't pay my mortgage. And I say that not just because they were tenants, because there's great tenants, but these ones were not great. And so I had
I
love
a lot of the stuff you said here. First off, I love that you took action and then learned as you went, right? So a lot of what you said was, for sure, wholesaling and a lot of real estate investing, the concepts are really simple, but execution and everything that comes behind that is not as simple as the concept. So for people that grasp concepts easily, you can, start off, but it's hard to execute all the way without knowing the full details. But the thing is, you didn't let that stop you. You didn't become, you took action. So I love that. And then you also learned as you went, right? So the first few investments you said you didn't really make any money or make much money, and you said a lot of it kind of went south. But I think what you learned was probably a higher ROI than what you made in terms of cash. So that's a good thing. How did you buy this 3-family in the Bronx? What did you use to do that?
FHA financing.
Okay.
So I was able to get in for 3.5% down, a couple of months of mortgage reserves that they require, and that was it. So I probably the purchase price was 505, so $500,000 building that I was able to control for $17,000. Plus whatever closing costs. I don't even know exactly how much they were, but maybe I rounded up a few thousand. So I say between 20 and 25,000, you can control. So that's why I love it. FHA. Yeah, some people will argue that it's a more expensive loan product. Which it is, because you're being able to control the property for less money down. You know what I mean? That's just, it's nothing like it. And I love leverage for real estate. That's one of the main reasons real estate is such a great tool for building wealth, is you can't use leverage for stocks or other asset types.
Yeah, so you're segueing to my next question. So why multifamily investing versus other types of real estate investing?
Multifamily. So, okay. When people talk about benefits of multifamily, a lot of people will say, oh, you get the tax benefits, you get the appreciation, blah, blah, blah. But you get that with any real estate, right? You get tax benefits, depreciation, all that kind of stuff. So why multifamily specifically? One, because it's the economies of scale. If you have one tenant leave or move out, you have other tenants still paying. So in that situation where I had one tenant not paying for all that time, I still had another tenant. I was still living there, so I was living for free, but then I was basically having to pay what rent I would have had to pay if I wasn't, living in my own place. And I had another tenant who was still paying. So that helped cushion that, and it wasn't devastating for me. Now, if that had been just a duplex, then maybe I would have been a little bit more trouble, right? So I always advocate for more units. And I was looking for 4-family, and it just didn't. The 3-family is what happened to come across my plate. So I went with that. The other thing for multifamily is that I think demographic wise, we're becoming more of a renter nation. Millennials and other younger people, they don't like the idea of being stuck to one place for an extended period of time without the option to move around. So even now, especially with COVID and the whole work from home craze, people are able to live wherever they want and still work at their jobs. And that was a trend that was happening before COVID, but it's now progressed and accelerated that trend. So now people, they don't want to, they already were trying to be, we're in such much more of an entrepreneurial spirit type of society right now. And everyone's trying to start their own thing, work for yourself. And even if you're working for other people, they don't want to commit. And the whole idealistic American dream of owning a house, being at the same job for 30, 40 years, retiring with your pension, all that's kind of out the window. A lot of people aren't subscribed to that same mindset anymore. And so as people like baby boomers are downsizing, they're renting apartments, they don't have to manage and do, you know, at least the constructive repairs and maintenance and keep up the upkeep of a property. And then millennials don't really want to buy a property because they want to be more mobile. They don't know where they're going to be in 5 years. So why have a 30-year mortgage, right? So I think renting and apartment buildings is just the trend that's happening more and more in this country, on top of the economies of scales and all the other real estate benefits, as far as depreciation, taxes, and all that other stuff.
What would you say? What would you say have been some of your biggest challenges and lessons that you've learned as a real estate investor so far, and then maybe some of your biggest milestones or things you're proud of?
Biggest challenges, I would say definitely sticking it out when I had those situations with rough tenants. And even now when I have better tenants, they pay on time all the time. But one of the apartments, like, their attitudes kind of stink. So it's like anytime, like, real estate is unpredictable. Sometimes things happen. So when things happen that are inconvenient for them, like, I just hear it. And the hardest part for me is just staying calm and not snapping back and trying to be like just not politically correct, but just being, responsible and having a calm demeanor. So managing tenants has definitely tested my resolve and my ability to respond in a calm manner to great situations that are just not ideal, right? So even I guess we had the Ida in the fall, and it destroyed like the first floor property. First floor unit kind of got a little flooded. I had to get the kitchen floors replaced and some other things happening in there. And they just complained the whole time I was getting things fixed. Like, I'm getting things fixed. Would you rather it stay horrible, or do you want me to get things fixed? Like, and they're getting fixed quickly, but because you're being inconvenienced, like, you're complaining. But to me, it's like you pick one. You want it fixed or you don't want it fixed. Which one do you want? So, okay, so just dealing with tenants and learning how to deal with that situation, learning how to self-manage and deal with contractors and just get things organized and do all the property management work. That has been one of the biggest obstacles and biggest learning experiences that I've gone through, because it's definitely not easy and you need thick skin for real estate. But the milestones are definitely worth it, because I actually am selling that property, right in the process of selling that now. And the amount that I'm going to clear net is so substantial that I'm able to roll that into other deals and just grow my portfolio and get rid of the property management day to day. Like, I would rather asset manage and look over the property managers instead of being the one to receive those calls. So I'm just, being able to reposition my portfolio into bigger deals and grow. And so it was definitely a big springboard for that. And I wouldn't trade all of that management experience that I gained, because it definitely taught me for the long haul, what I expect from property managers and how to talk to people and deal with tenants. And everyone has a life, and these are still people who live there, whether they're giving you a hard time or not. Sometimes it's understandable why they might be upset, and just having that insight and looking inside myself of how I am responding to people, and it really helped me grow and gain strength as a person.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And you weren't doing property management before this, right? Like, what were you doing before getting into real estate? Like, what was most of your professional experience in?
Healthcare. I went to school as a pre-medicine, and I was planning to go to medical school. And then I started working at a hospital in between because I was going to do a post-bac. And I ended up deciding as I was working at that hospital for the first couple of years that I gotta make sure I really want to be a doctor before I start on this journey, because that's a long journey. And I see these doctors now and they're not happy and they are just using doc because now they have so much bills and so much med school debt, and now they've gotten the bigger house, they got the bigger car, they have all these expenses and families and they expect a certain level from them, and now like they have to be a doctor because they can't afford not to be. Yeah. Right. And so I didn't want to be stuck there. I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly what I wanted to do going forward. So that then I started like looking for what that next thing was, and that's when I went to that 3-day conference and happened to be exposed to real estate. So yes, no, I had no prior, I didn't come from a real estate family. I didn't come from a business or entrepreneurial family. I came from a regular W-2, worked 3 or 4 jobs at a time to support the family kind of family. And so
property management is a challenge. You had to learn that. It was in the field learning. It was baptism by fire. So
yes, exactly.
You earned those stripes. Congrats. What would you say are your biggest milestones, or maybe one thing you're most proud of so far in your real estate investing career?
Most proud of actually my first commercial building. That actually taught me more about that next level of, you know, how I said being an asset manager and managing your property manager. And there were a lot of mistakes that I made during that time too, just as far as communication and expectations and pushing people to do what was best for the property and best for the business plan, because I was thinking, oh, it's still just a small property, or it's too small for me to be the squeaky wheel, right? Yeah. And so that's like a limiting belief that, you know, these property managers, they know more than you because they do this on a regular basis, which may be true. They may have some more insights, but at the same time, you have to keep control of your asset because this is not their money at stake, it's yours, right? This is your family's generational wealth and legacy that's at stake. So I don't care if it's 3 units or 6 units or 100 units. You need to make sure that they are managing it in the manner that works for you and gives you what you need and what you're looking for from that business plan of operations for that property versus how they normally operate, and trying to find that common ground where it can work for both parties. But I think the repositioning of that 6 unit and going through some struggles with that, that is a big milestone that I'm very proud of, because that's turning out really good. Like when I first was about to buy the property, one of my mentors looked at it and was like, that's not a deal. And so I panicked and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have this. I don't have this information. I don't have a T12. I don't have this. I don't know expectations because I'm trying to get it from the property manager and they're giving me these roundabout numbers. Like nobody wants to really like sit down and say, okay, you can expect this much rent if you put this much money into each unit and all of that. So I kind of went in blind. And even though I had a partner who had done it before, he's a little like, he's a great person, but he's a little more lax than I am when it comes to like really wanting to crunch these numbers and stay on top of things. He's kind of go with the flow. And I really like to pre-plan and have everything kind of set out. But I think just managing through that process and learning the ebbs and flows and handling, because I wanted to get the property repairs financed through the bank, like, and have a construction loan, and that didn't happen. So we had to self-finance. So being able to move my money around to be able to keep up with the financing of the repairs for that property on top of everything else. And now we're at the point where we've gotten the whole building basically repositioned. We have rents raised, and we've already submitted our application for refinance. And so we should be able to pull out almost 100% of our money, purchase and rehab. So now it'll be infinite returns after that. So I'm very proud that proof of concept kind of got proven to me, like through me just going through the steps of what people have told me is possible and how it works. And now I started it and I did it on a smaller scale. And now I can take that same model and put it into bigger properties.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, and you've done so much. I mean, I just really admire your boldness and like jumping into the fire. And I wish we had 2 more hours to talk. I'm sure we just learned so much more. But what if you can just a couple more questions here. So if someone was just starting out in multifamily investing, what would be the one piece of advice you would give them? someone was brand new?
Brand new. So the first advice, and it's kind of, I guess people think of foo-foo and not like something, that's a hardcore do this, that. But I really think knowing yourself and taking some time to really be introspective and know what your goals are, like creating a vision of how you want your life to look in the future and what will get you there. And looking at the different types of strategies, real estate investment strategies and asset types, and which one fits most with the model of or the vision of how you want to live your life. Right. Because not every strategy is for every person. Not every asset type is for every person. And they all come with their own caveats. So it just depends on what you're looking to do, how you want to live. Do you want to be active even? Do you want to go through all the crap that I had to go through over these last few years? Or do you love your job and you just want to build this on the back end as you're going about daily life? Because then you can invest passively. So maybe that is more up your alley. So I just think people need to know that there are options to investing that don't include you having to deal with tenants, toilets, and trash, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize that because they don't understand where they really want to go. They want to decide on the next step, but they don't know if they're going in the right direction because they haven't thought about their vision. And that, I think, is the most important part. And the next thing is also just getting together with a team or finding a mentor or attending meetups like this and connecting with people offline outside of these meetups so you can talk and ask questions and get as much education. So I think creating your vision, getting educated, and connecting with people and finding a mentor, even if it's an unofficial mentor, so that you can create a plan and a roadmap to take you on the right direction. You don't want to start climbing a ladder and you realize you're on the wrong wall because your goal is really over there, but you didn't plan it out first. So that's one thing.
Yeah, if you could go back in your real estate investment journey, what would you do differently, if anything? What would you do differently now, knowing what you know today?
Actually, just what I said. I didn't sit back and know my overall values, or I had an overarching goal. My goal was I want to retire my mom early. I didn't want her to work 3 jobs to support, the family. I wanted her to have the lifestyle of travel and doing whatever she wanted, right? So that was the overarching goal. But as far as my lifestyle, what I need to get there, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids at that time. So to me, it was just do whatever, but I didn't also sit down. I think the most important part of things that I didn't realize to do was sit down and think, what are my strengths and how can I add value to somebody else who's already doing this? What can I bring to the table? And that was something that I always had a limiting belief. It's if you are experienced, if this person is experienced, why would they want to work with me? I don't know anything. I don't have anything. I don't have money, but I had time. I could run around and do things. I could travel to different, cities and tour properties or meet people. I had time to implement. And a lot of times that's what people who are busy, they don't have the time. And so if you can take something off their plate and just knowing what you're strong and what you're good at and what you can add value to somebody else, I think if I had linked up with someone and add value to them so they could, unofficially mentor me, if I had been able to do that earlier in my career, I think I would have been further along now.
Nice. Yeah, we're going to shift to a couple of questions from the audience here. So if you folks have any questions, drop them in the chat. I know I got a question sent to me here about the house hack and the FHA loan. So what was that? If you could briefly describe, what was that FHA process like? How did you qualify for it? What were some of the things that you had to prepare for the to get an FHA loan to house hack?
Well, they will, just knowing the requirements of the lender, which most lenders, if you're going to do FHA is packaged. So you have to fit into certain criteria as far as debt to income, what those percentages are. So knowing what your debt to income is, which is any debt that's actually on your credit report, so if it's not on your credit report, the bank doesn't see it. They don't know what your other bills are really. So that's what they're figuring that out on, the debt that's on your credit report versus the income income from your taxes. Like you can't just pick your income, which I was doing at first, pick your income from your W-2. But if you have write-offs and stuff, they're gonna look at your adjusted gross income from that you filed on your taxes, and then subtract your debt from your credit reports from that. And then also, I think having a mortgage broker, that was very crucial for me, because if you go specifically to one bank, you have to fit into whatever box of products they have. They have a specific product line for loans, and there's specific requirements for you to qualify for those loans. So if you don't fit in one of those boxes, you're going to just be denied. With a mortgage broker, they have access to a bunch of different lenders. And if they're a good broker, then they can see your financial snapshot and pick the loan product or the lender that's best for you. Like halfway through my process, we had to switch lenders because I was about to get denied. And they don't have a denial on your record either, because when you apply for somebody else, they will ask you, have you ever gotten denied for a mortgage before? And you don't want to put yes, because then that's going to make them look even more deeply into your file, right? And it's going to make them be more critical. So we pulled out our application before I got the denial, but the denial was not from my W-2 income, it was from my taxes, because I had a lot of write-offs. And so I know we always try to write off as much as possible during our taxes, but if you're looking to purchase, maybe you hold off on those write-offs for a couple of years before you purchase something, because that will help your financial situation if you're looking at using a lender. But he was able to switch my application over to a new lender who had a program. If you hadn't bought anything before, they weren't look at your taxes. So that was my biggest problem. And then that way I was able to get approved. So I think the FHA process is just kind of, I think, finding a mortgage broker, but more than going to a specific bank, and kind of knowing what your criteria is, look at what you've been claiming on your taxes, what your tax versus just income is up front. So you kind of, or have somebody help you run through that so you know what your eligibility looks like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and house hacking is, again, one of the best ways to get started in investing, again, because it eliminates your biggest expense, which is your living expense, if you have tenants that are paying your rent. All right, so I know we're almost at time here. So real quickly, how do you give back? What ways do you give back? And how can people get in touch with you if they have more questions and want to connect with you offline?
Well, giving back right now is really through my social media and trying to post information and give education. I have calls with people when they do reach out to me. So my whole goal is to get people invested, especially minorities, invested into real estate and to close that wealth gap. And I think real estate is one of the biggest ways to be able to do that, because it can work for you as you're just going about your life, as long as you go in and get educated and know it, and you can roll with the punches kind of thing. But yes, I definitely just reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, so Instagram and Facebook under Nicole Pendergrass. On Instagram, it is Investor Nikki, so without the I. And my website, norvestholdings.com, which I could put here, is also where all of my social media handles are there, and you can schedule a call with me through there. You can email me through there. So I think that's probably like the best place to go right now, because you can reach me from any of the other facets there. I also had another question here. Somebody asked, how do I find the deals? Actually, for my 3-family house hack, because of my experience with, okay, baby's here. Because of my experience with wholesaling, I had learned a lot of strategies for getting direct to seller with sending yellow letters. So I knew how to pull lists from listsource.com, and I learned how different strategies for sending direct mail so that you could get a good open rate. So what I did is I pulled a list of 3 and 4 family properties in certain zip codes of the Bronx. And I sent, like on July 4th, I sent a red envelope with a note card in it. And I hand wrote on the note cards, and I hand wrote the envelope because I wanted them to open. So it looked like, an invitation or a card or something. And so the 3-family that I purchased actually was a response from that campaign.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Wholesaling is beautiful because, one, you don't need a lot of money to get started. You make a lot of money doing it, but the biggest thing is wholesaling teaches you how to find a good deal, and that's a skill that you'll need always in real estate. Nicole, thanks so much for your time, and thanks for sharing so much. I wish again we could have more time to keep going, because I think this could be a full master class here today. But thanks again for sharing.
No problem. Thank you for having me. And people, please reach out. I love to talk real estate. I love to help people kind of figure out their path and where they need to go, and giving whatever resources and information that I have. I am constantly sharing and sending emails. I have email drafts sent with like just saved of information that I constantly get, and I just send it out when we have calls. So please reach out if you have any questions at all.
Thank you. Thank you.